Welcome to Culture Over Coffee, a podcast focused on improving company culture and fostering employee engagement. Every week, we chat with experts and thought leaders about the latest proven practices to reduce regrettable turnover, increase productivity, and retain key customers. So pour a cup of your favorite brew and join us. I'm your host, Beth Sunshine, SVP at Up Your Culture. In this episode, we're looking into why the honeymoon phase for new employees is fading so fast and how it's costing organizations more than they realize. With half of new hires feeling only somewhat engaged within their first 6 months, early disengagement is becoming a major threat to retention, morale, and performance. And joining me to help break it all down is Tirzah Thornburg, Senior Talent Analyst at the Center for Sales Strategy. Tirzah brings so many awesome points to the table, like how a one-size-fits-all onboarding experience can lead to fresh hires checking out early, and why too many managers expect their more experienced new hires to hit the ground running when, in fact, they still need a firm onboarding plan. And finally, why it's up to you to ensure that every new member of your team goes home on their first day saying, "I made the right choice." So Tirzah, thank you for joining me today for a little Culture Over Coffee.
All right, I'm excited. This will be fun.
Me too. As a talent analyst at the Center for Sales Strategy, you have done a lot of important work around onboarding, early engagement. I know this is something you probably coach leaders on all of the time. So I'm really excited for our listeners to hear your insights, to be able to hear your thoughts on just where companies are getting it right, maybe where they're falling short. Hopefully they'll leave here today with some ideas that they can put into action. Right. So I'm going to just jump right in with my first question, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
So we're going to start with a stat. The Engage 2025 report showed that half of brand new employees are already feeling only somewhat engaged. I found that really surprising because we're so used to that honeymoon phase where new employees are just glowing for a long time. So why is it that traditional honeymoon phase might be disappearing, and what's causing new hires to disengage so quickly?
So I would say probably the most common answer to that is that in a lot of cases, it's just poor communication before the job starts. So somebody takes the job, they have an expectation it's going to be one way, and then they get on the job and they realize, oh, that expectation was not correct. They feel misled or they misunderstood. If the new hire doesn't understand what's involved in the job, what the day-to-day work is going to be, not, well, you're going to occasionally do projects, but day-to-day, this is going to be what you're going to be working on. They tend to feel frustrated. They tend to feel upset, like they were misled. Onboarding also often isn't as strong as it should be. Everybody learns a little bit differently, but often new hires are all kind of taught the same way. They just assume that because one person likes to look at videos, everybody likes to look at videos. So it's really important to make sure that coaching is individualized, that onboarding is individualized, so they feel like, hey, this was tailored to me. This is the type of onboarding that works for me. And then, of course, the culture fit is always a really, really big concern. I hear managers all the time say, oh, they're going to be a great culture fit. But the team is super fast paced. I mean, the team just moves with lightning speed and the new hire doesn't. Maybe the new hire just doesn't have that comfort level. They're more of a slow moving turtle. Or the team is really outgoing. They're friends and they hang out together, and they hire somebody who's an introvert who just is like, nope, 6 feet back. I don't want to get too close. That culture shock can be really, really hard on that new hire. And within weeks, they're thinking, why did I take this job? This job was a mistake. They disengage, whether they quit immediately or whether they quietly quit. They tend to have one foot out the door because that onboarding just didn't go the way it should have.
So interesting. So as you were talking, I was picturing on one side of this spectrum, you've got kind of the old bait and switch where the job we hired you to do may not exactly be the job that you're going to do. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I'm hearing from you, like, that's all up and up, but the individual themselves may just not be the right person for that team or that manager. Super interesting to kind of think through that. So when that happens, when there's early disengagement, and you mentioned it can be, literally they walk out the door, or maybe their heart is not in it any longer. When that happens, I know it doesn't just affect one person, it has ripple effects across the entire team. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that impacts morale and productivity, maybe retention if companies don't get that right in the first few months?
Absolutely. One upset person oftentimes tends to broadcast their dissatisfaction, and that can really poison a team. So on the one hand, if your team is tenured and they work really well together and they just have a great dynamic and they communicate well, and you make one bad hire, suddenly the whole team is upset. The whole team is frustrated. One complainer on a team, and suddenly no one wants to come to work. So you can have a great hardworking team, but now suddenly everybody's coming up with excuses because we're not happy. We don't like the team atmosphere. And at the same time, that productivity goes down, that frustration goes up, and then people start looking for a new job with a better culture. Tenured people, when they start looking for a new job, very, very often they're like, well, the culture, we felt uncomfortable there. We didn't like it anymore. We had this fabulous team and now it's not there anymore. And on a new team, where the bonds between the team members are still being created, one bad hire can be even more destructive because suddenly bad habits become the norm on the team. One person who talks to their manager and do their job, suddenly everybody's like, well, if you do it for them, you have to do it for me. And, suddenly the leader is going, wait, what happened? I had a great new team. And suddenly they've all gone sideways. And a lot of times it's because they hired one person who the fit wasn't right, their talent wasn't right, and suddenly the whole team just goes sideways. So it really is awfully important when you're looking at hiring somebody. Are their talents the right talents that they need to have? Are their skills the right skills? And are they going to fit with the culture on the team? A team that works well together, is very transparent, is very honest. You put one dishonest person on that team, the team explodes. A team that's very hardworking, and you put a lazy person on the team, and the team explodes. So it's really genuinely important to make sure that you make that right hire so that they fit on the team. A lot of leaders now are going to panel interviews where they include one or two people from the team they're going to be working on. And suddenly they get to interview that candidate, and then they give an honest opinion. Yeah, I could work with this person. I think they fit great on our team. Or if you hire them, I'm out the door. And that can give a hiring manager, a hiring leader, a good idea of, is this the right person for the job? Or is this just the wrong person? Regardless of their skills, regardless of their talents, if it's not there, it's always a bad hire.
That's so well said. Yeah. I mean, every single hire we make is either going to add to the culture or detract from it. Culture is never stable. It is such a fluid, living thing. And I love the concept of a panel interview to make sure we're getting every single hire right. Very smart. So Engage 2025 shows this is, I think, a really big deal in an age where we hear a lot about the importance of growth and development. The report shows that only 13% of new hires feel as though their development is a priority. So what's missing from today's onboarding efforts, and how should companies move beyond just the orientation day where you check it off to actually showing new hires that you plan to develop them forevermore?
So honestly, in a lot of cases, it's a simple onboarding plan. I can't tell you how often I've heard managers who will say they need to hit the ground running. They're experienced, they're tenured, I don't need a plan. They're just going to hit the ground running. And always I think, that's not going to go well. You need to have a plan. You need to have a measured idea of what they're going to be working on, even if they are tenured. It's great in theory to say, oh, this person isn't going to need a lot of help. They're going to get up to speed. But in actual fact, if a new hire doesn't have a good grounding in company structure, company process, company culture, they're not going to succeed and they're not going to be happy. New hires need to know what processes they're going to be using, how to use the CRM, how it works, even if they used it in a different company. Because I hear that, oh, well, they used the CRM before. I don't have to train them on it. Your company guaranteed is going to use it differently from the way that the previous company did. They need that grounding. They need to know the company lingo. If a company uses a lot of acronyms, or if they're coming from a different industry, they're not going to know some of the words that everybody throws out on a daily basis. It stops them from feeling like a part of the team. If I don't know what you're talking about, I don't feel like I'm part of the team. So really important to think those things through during the onboarding plan. How are we going to help them to get up to speed with things that they need to know? What other departments are they going to work with? Who in those departments are they going to work with? Having that introduction given, helping them to understand how that department works. Another place where we see a lot of disengagement, a lot of struggles, sometimes kind of combative struggles, is between departments, because one department does things one way and the other department doesn't. Maybe they communicate differently. Maybe one department needs a little bit more relationship. They want to have those greetings, and the other department is like, nope, just jump right to it. I don't need any of that. Helping them to understand that sets them up for success when they're working with other people. They also, and that's all in addition to learning their actual job. I mean, they need to be shown. It doesn't matter if they've worked in the industry forever. They still need to know how things are done on this job. They need to understand the priorities on this job. What does an emergency look like at our company versus what an emergency looked like at their previous company? What does urgent mean in this company versus in another company? Things like that are really, really important. Having a flexible onboarding plan is really important. It's more work. It's more time. You have to create that flexible onboarding plan. But once you have it, it can be customized to each new hire. So then onboarding will be better. It'll be easier for the leader that hired them. And it'll also help people get up to speed faster. And then as far as ongoing, how do we want them to feel like their development is important? They do need to understand what success will look like. So what does this look like at 30 days? How will I know I've been successful? At 90 days, how do I know I've been successful? At 1 year, at 5 years, how do I understand what that success is going to look like? And of course, discussing their goals with them. What are their personal goals? Where do they see themselves? I mean, it's always a question. Where do you see yourself in a year, 3 years, 5 years? But really listen to that answer. Do they want to go into leadership? You know what? That is absolutely a possibility. Let's talk about some of the skills you'll need to develop to get into that leadership position. Maybe they want to become an expert in a particular area. Let's talk about that. Once you hit these milestones, then let's move on with your progress so that you can get to these next milestones. People need to know that there's something next, that there's another step for them. And so laying that out, being very honest, being very intentional, communicating that really well. This is what success looks like now. This is what success is going to look like in the future. It makes people feel like, yes, there's a reason to stay, as opposed to, well, if I want to move up, I'm looking at a different company.
Great stuff. Yeah, I like everything you said. What I'm finding my mind is sort of churning on is your point that even if they've done the job before, maybe even with the same, if they're in sales, CRM, or the same whatever, even if it was the same job title, it's a different company. It's a different culture. We do things differently here. So it's about how do we do things here. I love thinking that through. And a lot of what I heard you saying, if I were to boil it down, is communication. I heard a lot of listen to them and also share with them so that you know what success looks like for them and they know what it looks like as well. I'm so glad we touched on that. Thank you. So shifting gears just a little bit, we've been talking about onboarding, and you did mention what does 1 year look like or 3 years, but I want to just zoom in on those first 90 days because research shows those first 90 days are really critical. What are some key moments where leaders either build trust and belonging or they unintentionally damage it in those first 90 days?
So first and foremost, obviously our first day is super important. You want it to be structured. You want it to go exactly the way it's planned and not be chaotic. somebody should meet them. There should be somebody who's welcoming them, who's greeting them and saying, hey, welcome to the company. I'm going to take you to where your desk is. I'm going to introduce you to all the people that you need to know. We're going to celebrate you because it's your first day. That is probably the most important thing. You want to make a really fabulous first impression. Who's going to take them to lunch? Somebody should take them to lunch. Somebody should say, maybe the whole team takes them. We're getting to know you. We're valuing you. We think that you're a great addition to our company. At the end of the day, very important. How was your first day? What are your first impressions? Your new hire absolutely has to go home and say, oh my God, it was amazing. I made the right choice. I picked the right company. This was the right job for me. If they go home with anything less, if their partner says, hey, how was your day? And they go, it was okay. You can bet that that's going to be rolling around in their minds. Did I make the right choice? Oh my gosh, what if this was the wrong job? Maybe I should have taken the other job. So really important, that first day has to set a great tone. They have to feel confident. Yes, this was the right place to work. And yes, I'm really happy with this team. Moving on, their leader needs to think, again, very intentionally, how often will I check in with them? They should have a work buddy, somebody they can turn to and ask questions if they don't want to go to their leader. Their leader needs to have check-in times. First week, first 2 weeks, they need to be checking in regularly, multiple times a day, making sure that they have everything that they need, even if they're being sent off to a class, even if they're being asked to watch videos. How did it go? What are you thinking? Where are you at? What do you need? How can I help you? Having a work buddy is huge. Somebody that they can ask questions of who isn't in charge. A lot of times having that work buddy, even in a different department, can be helpful because then they get a sense. Oh, these are how the other departments work. These are the other people that I'm going to be working with. Very, very important. Daily check-ins and goals. Goals should be very, very clear. Now, to be clear, goals are not, this is a yearly goal. This is the big goal that you're going to be held accountable to. Daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, 30, 60, 90 days. What does success look like? What does good look like? What does awesome look like in this job? Their goal should be somewhere in between the two. And when someone says to them, how's your new job going? They should be able to say, it's going awesome. I'm hitting all of my goals. Or, I could be doing better. I'm not quite hitting those goals the way I should. Knowing what those goals are is incredibly important. And of course, getting them integrated into the company culture just as quickly as possible. What are the core goals or what are the core values for the company? What is important to us? What are the things that everybody should know? Everyone should be able to just reel those off the top of their head. Do they know what those core values are? If the team has a mission statement, hey, this is what we do. This is who we are as a team. They should know what that is. They should agree. Yes, that's a really great conversation. That's a really great goal to have as a group. This is who we are. This is what we do. And it's also important to have conversations about them. Who are they? What are their goals? What's important to them? Really, really important. Once again, we bring in that communication. How do they communicate? What is important to them? What are their hot buttons? What do they think? Hey, this is really important to me. Things like their work styles. What do they love? What do they hate? In a previous manager, I loved it when they. In a previous manager, I hated when they. Having those conversations so that your new hire feels like, they understand me. They're interested in me. Really, that should be that first 90-day goal. Is the new hire should be thinking, you know what, my leaders care about me. My coworkers care about me. They're interested in me. They're interested in my success. All of those things, having those goals, having that communication will lead them to coming to the conclusion that, yes, this was the right job for me. I picked the right one and I'm happy that I'm here.
Great recipe for success in that first 90 days. I'm not taking notes at the moment, but I know after this, I'm going to jot down at least 5 or 6 things that should be done in the first 90 days that you just listed. But what about before even that first day? I know pre-boarding is something that you tend to teach clients or leaders to really use. How can companies use that time period between the day someone says yes to the job and signs the contract and the day they actually walk into the office, either physically or virtually? How can they use that time period to create early connections, to set those expectations that you're talking about, and really boost confidence so that they show up on day one excited and ready to go?
Absolutely. That is so incredibly important. once they take the job, they need to stay engaged with your company so they actually show up on that first day. Having leaders interact with them, reach out, greet them, welcome them. We're so excited to get to know you. Having the team reach out, having the team send a video, either as a group or individually. Hey, we're super excited to meet you. We've done this before where, you have, for instance, your work buddy, if it happens to be your dog that tends to be in your office, or it happens to be the plant that you have behind you, and say, hey, I'm super excited to meet you. Here's my name. Here's what I do. Here's one fun fact about me. When they walk in the door, if they feel like they've met you already, oh, I know who you are. I know your name. I know that you like to do this. It gives them more of a connection. It makes them feel like, hey, I'm not just walking in cold to a bunch of strangers. I kind of know these people a little bit. That can keep that excitement level up for them. Definitely sending them all the information that they need. If there's paperwork, everybody hates that. First 2 hours of a new job and you're sitting there and you're filling out paperwork with HR. Does it need to be done the first day? Could it be done ahead of time so that they're thinking, okay, I'm ready. I can hit the ground running when I walk in that first day. Having their computer ready for them, having office supplies ready. So when they walk in, they're thinking, wow, this is, they prepared for me. Even things like decorating their cubicle a couple of days before. You could send them a picture. Oh my God, we've got it all decorated and ready for you. We're so excited to have you join us today. Anything like that makes them feel a part, makes them feel connected. If you have company swag, why not send them a mug with a company name on it, or a shirt that they can wear on their first day? Anything to make them feel valued, to make them feel like, wow, this is going to be a great company. I'm going to fit in here. I'm going to love working with these guys. Definitely, whoever hires them should have almost kind of a schedule. I'm going to reach out to them, greet them, say, I'm super excited that we're joining you, or that you're joining our team. A couple days later, hey, really excited. These are some things that we've done in preparation for your being here. Have the team reach out, have leaders reach out. Somebody should be reaching out to them regularly, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's a month. You want to keep that excitement level high. Something that happens, unfortunately, is they take the job and then a competitor reaches out and says, hey, we want to hire you. If they're not excited to join your team, they're going to be asking, hey, what can you offer me? Hey, I just signed up with these guys, but if you offer me a little bit more money, I'll join you. And suddenly you're ghosted by your new hire. So it's really important to keep them excited, keep them engaged, keep them thinking, oh, I would definitely never take another job because this is the job for me. I love this place. Really thinking, again, intentionally, how do we keep them connected? How do we keep them excited? How do we keep them engaged before they walk in the door that first day?
There's so much intention behind everything you're sharing. It's not like you can make a job offer, set a start date, and then just try to remember to greet them and say hello when they show up. There's so much that you're sharing happening in between that is so valuable. So for all of our listeners who are thinking about their desire to put some of this into action, really wanting to reduce early turnover, getting those new hires really sucked into that honeymoon phase, what is one change they could make? Something that they could listen to you today and then walk away and do to create a stronger, stickier new hire experience?
Genuinely, if it was one single thing, it would be great communication. Being very clear, very intentional with how you communicate and what you communicate. Setting clear expectations from the very beginning so that they know what they're getting into. They know the company that they're joining. They understand what success is going to look like. What will their priorities be? Priorities are different for every industry, for every company, and for every department. What are their priorities going to be? Definitely communicating that clearly. What are the rules, the guidelines, the timelines, the deadlines? Communicating, how you communicate, first of all. This is my style. This is what I like. You know what? I really prefer email. I'm okay with, a phone call, but I prefer email. That works best for me. What works best for you? How should I communicate to you? I prefer bullet points. You know what? If you need me, you can just jump right in and give me those bullet points. How do you like it? Would you prefer that we chat for a few minutes, or do you want to just jump right into business? Things like that, communicating the way they want to be communicated to. Platinum rule of communication. Communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with. That is huge to keep people happy, to keep people engaged. Again, breakdowns between departments, they don't communicate the same way. Breakdowns between coworkers, they don't communicate the same way. If somebody jumps in and says, hey, I need this, the other person might go, well, that was rude. You didn't ask me how my day was. You didn't even say good morning. Somebody else might say, oh, good morning. How are you? How's your day? And the other person is like, oh my God, just get to it. You don't have to add all of that. So understanding how that other person communicates, what works best for them, it would honestly be the single most important thing. If nothing else, write down on a Post-it note and put it on your computer. Communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with, because that's going to keep them happy. Everything else tends to fall in line from there, but really it starts with having awesome communication.
I love that. Knowing the unique qualities of your people. You called it the platinum rule of communication. Brilliant. Great advice to leave everyone with. And Tirzah, I just want to thank you for being here, for shining a light on where so many onboarding efforts do fall short and giving us some ways that we can fix them. Very much appreciate it. I'd love to put your LinkedIn contact information in the show notes, if that's okay with you. Really? I bet our listeners would love to be able to connect with you, follow you. I know you're really active in blog writing. You share a lot of insight all the time. And then we'll also, to all of our listeners, include a link to the Engage 2024 report as well, so you can dig into all of the data that we're referencing. I want to, Tirzah, thank you, and thank you to our listeners for just really being intentional and focusing on how you can up your culture. Thanks so much for spending time with us on Culture Over Coffee. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe and join us for every episode. For more helpful information about company culture and employee engagement, visit us at upyourculture.com.